Hi, I'm Christine Gritmon, and this is Social, the Facebook Live show I do every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, talking with one of my very smart friends about something to do with social media. And this week, my very smart friend is Brian Wallace of Now Sourcing. Hey, Brian.
Hi. What's going on? Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming. Brian is actually just back from South by Southwest, which is a whole other thing we could talk about. In fact, we did last year. I'll link that somewhere in the comments. But what we're talking about today is actually how I met him, which is LinkedIn Local. Now, LinkedIn Local is not officially run by LinkedIn. It is kind of like unofficially blessed by LinkedIn. It is a very organized thing. To use the LinkedIn Local name for your networking event, you do need to have been through, an onboarding call. You need to sort of obey certain guidelines. It is a global movement. It's not just something I'm randomly throwing here. And so we are going to talk about LinkedIn in anticipation of the first Westchester LinkedIn Local, which is happening this Monday, April 1st. Woo!
Nice.
Yeah. So Brian, how did you get involved with LinkedIn Local?
Gosh, so I always try to find whatever technological, but more than tech, but like when I see an uptick in community in any social platform, that's when I dive in. I'm not the first person into stuff, but I started, so my company Now Sourcing turns 13 years old this August. And before we got into infographic campaigns only, very early on, we were a social media agency. So I've been following and analyzing and trending social communities, and there's just like a wasteland of them over the last dozen plus years. And when I saw the last year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when the LinkedIn creator community started becoming a thing, this made my brain just go on fire, because lately LinkedIn is where it's at. You can talk about all the different things, and we're not going to crap on Facebook because we're sitting here on Facebook Live and all that. I get it. And
LinkedIn is different. It's a different type of community. We're there for a different reason.
Right. But what I love about this is there's already 600 million people on it. And, Microsoft bought them for $26 billion. So it isn't like just a startup and maybe it'll succeed. It already had its audience, and people were tired of just like the HR people bugging them about jobs and salespeople and how would you like SEO, outsource services, blah, 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 garbage. So people are absolutely obsessed with it. And what you really can't get on most social platforms these days is organic reach. So my best post out there hit close to 1 million views, and I still regularly get thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So you've got all the online world stuff that's going on within the community. So about a year and a half ago or so, there were 4 people from around the world that wanted to just do like small kinds of intimate meetups to get to know people behind the profile. And since then, man, it's been in at least 800 different cities. We've had over 100,000 participants. It's enormous. And different people and different organizers, different cities, different states, different regions, different countries have different ideas on how all this stuff is done. So there is, like you said, the whole onboarding process. And it is sort of like an unofficial grassroots LinkedIn blessed movement. There's been a lot of rebrand that's going into Local X. So that way, if it's not just a LinkedIn thing, we can talk about other events, but let's stick to LinkedIn Local / Local X for sure.
And it's great that you mentioned that there's, all these different ideas on how to do it, because on the one hand, it makes the fact that there is some structure important so that it's recognizable as part of the same sort of sub-brand, sort of like TEDx has its own guidelines, but the local flavor is really key. I mean, even just looking at the 3 counties that I'm right near, there's Rockland, there's Westchester, there's Bergen. I would do an event differently in each of those counties, honestly, just because people do things differently. So I met you at the LinkedIn New York City, LinkedIn Local New York City event, and we also were together at the LinkedIn Local in Spring Valley, which was great. Thanks for bringing me in on that. And so now I'm throwing a LinkedIn Local in White Plains. What are something I want to make sure people understand why this is different from just any other networking event. So what are some pieces of advice you would give to me or to anyone throwing their own LinkedIn Local to give it that distinct LinkedIn Local vibe?
So I'll walk through kind of 5 pillars of what I would recommend for LinkedIn Local advice for everybody who's putting it together. Before we get to that, though, let's touch on the point that you said. Let's give people a reason to attend LinkedIn Local and LinkedIn Local Westchester / White Plains, which you're putting on. I feel like a lot of people they're just fatigued with all of these networking meetings and speed dating and all of that stuff. And I find that regardless of what kind of flavor of LinkedIn Local people are putting together, I feel like this is something different and special, because when you do some of these other things, I don't know, the speed dating stuff doesn't feel right to me. I don't think that human beings are ATMs. Right. And it's like, you know, just crapping business cards over each other rather than understanding and coming together on a thing. But here we get to merge our online and offline worlds and talk about LinkedIn and productivity, business. So it's not just crappy sales pitches all day. So I feel like of the events, and for a while, I swore off local events, but I love having some kind of hand in LinkedIn Locals throughout the nation and in some instances around the world. And whenever it's something in my region or where I'm traveling from, I always try to make that a thing. So the 2 LinkedIn Locals that you did, even though I live in the Midwest, and I'm from New York, I was the person putting it on. So for sure. So let's jump. So now that we've kind of said,
I feel like just from my perspective, I feel like one of the nice things about a LinkedIn Local is that I think the very nature of people who are going to respond to something like LinkedIn Local, they are by their very nature, they're first of all to connect, but second of all, to stay in touch. I think that is really key, because you go to a networking event, you get all these business cards, and then people don't follow up. Whereas at LinkedIn Local, it's obvious what your next step is. You connect on LinkedIn. You know?
So true. And I mean, I think it's even just like a methodology of how you approach the world, right? So if you're good at what you do, you probably shouldn't even like go out there and start networking unless you kind of have a thing and have a why, whether you're working for somebody, whether
I need hugs and selfies, man. Like that's what fuels me.
Whatever works for everybody. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like we get to choose who we work with in life. And I like working with good people. Before I worry about how they can help me and what kinds of products and services and whatever, I'd rather meet the people behind it first. Like whenever I go to somebody's about page and it's like, so-and-so has 200 years of combined experience. It's like, really? What are their names? What do they look like? What are they interested in? I don't know. People are interested in that transparency and interested in that relationship. You can't fake it and you can't hide anymore. So yeah, I think it's a key. So yeah, so let's dive into just some
the 5 pillars of throwing a good LinkedIn Local.
Yes. So the biggest one, before you do anything, you have to have a great venue. If you don't have a physical space, it's just not going to happen. So it's not a Twitter party or a tweet chat. It's actual physical people in real life. So if you don't have the right size, shape, and flavor for your area of the universe, it's probably not going to work. And I mean, I've had, in some cases, I've tried to steer different cities, whether they're in my region or helping other people. It could take a year. I don't know. But you've got to nail it down. So I've tried some where it's in a bar or something like that. And it's like,
loud.
It's too loud, it's too annoying, and you get so much diffuse noise over the traffic of people who are trying to listen that everybody gets frustrated. And I also always try to give people like surveys and feedback after the fact to see not just what I believe, but I want to hear from everyone.
Absolutely. So, I want to hear where Lynn is hosting hers. Lynn, where do you host your LinkedIn Local in Fort Lee?
Yeah, where is Lynn's?
Yeah,
I know she's been doing
find that out. Keep rolling.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and you know, I'm from the New York metro area, so I love seeing that tri-state area unite. There's tri-state area up here, but New York, there's no which one's
we're the real tri-state area.
All right, well, I won't disagree, even though I live in the other one. All right, so in the venue, though, I would say make sure that it is the right size and format. So some people think that the right kind of LinkedIn Local for their city is 20 people in an intimate bar, restaurant, something, and that's fine. I don't personally agree. I think that it should be a little bit bigger, and I think it should be someplace where it has good acoustics, spots to network, especially taking pictures, because the LinkedIn Local community, again, is worldwide, global,
and
right?
We're digital. Like, we're going to post stuff online because we are online. And Lynn apparently hosts hers at the Fort Lee Public Library. Which is a very good thought. A lot of libraries have conference rooms. A lot of those libraries have kind of different regulations as to, you know, you can only do it if you're a nonprofit, or you can only do it if you're not profiting from the event. The third one that she's having in Fort Lee is April 30th. That's good to know.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so that's good to know. You have to have the right space with the right number of people, and you have to be able to hear.
Yeah. And the other part on the taking pictures and that everybody's digital, you'd better believe it. All the LinkedIn people although it may not be official LinkedIn, they're watching it all like a hawk. They want to see who's involved. And everybody kind of gets involved in it. Which
Does that mean they'll give me LinkedIn Live if they like do enough?
I'm telling you, I can't even. So there's like 12 people in the world right now. I'm waiting for it too.
I know. I'm friends with a couple of them.
Yep. It's coming.
I got to make my LinkedIn Live debut at Social Media Marketing World with Chris Strub. Thank you, Chris.
There you go. Yep, Chris is the man. Love that dude.
But go ahead.
Yep. So making sure that you have that right size too. So sometimes it's 20 people, sometimes it's 50, 100, 200. I know there's a few people that have like 1 to 2,000. I don't know what they're thinking, but hey.
How do you connect? Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, I would say, and again, this is just like my advice. There's lots of different schools of thoughts. I think the right size is somewhere between 50 to 200, depending on how big the city is, where it is in town, and what kinds of people you have going on. So that's first, right? So building our 4 walls or 5 columns or whatever. Second is to have a great team, because it's really obvious when people just like met for the first time and it totally sucks. So like you and I, right? So when you and I were on the panel together, what did we do? So we picked the people in advance. We told everybody a month before who was going to speak. So people from all over our individual little universes were interested in coming to see us individually and collectively. And of course, there's overlap, but really assigning roles and then just pre-rehearsing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be cue cards. But I think to have a great game plan, if you look at who's in the field, you have a person who's emceeing the event, which is probably the venue host or company owner. Then you have maybe some of the people who are the organizers, right? They could have an official or unofficial role or greeters or something like that. You should have people who are checking in people, because why not? And have little badges so people remember who the names of the people are, because it's very hard to, if you're walking through a crowd of 200 people, know face to name without a little help. I think that it's good to have a moderator for a panel and then to have panelists. I'd say 3 panelists is probably good. And then, like I said, just putting them together, knowing what everybody's going to talk about. Different people like to talk about different things. So when I'm speaking or on a panel, I'm kind of like analyst and forward thinking tech, whatever tricks I can show the audience. And then knowing who you're speaking to there, right?
Yeah. And this reminds me, I've been traveling all over the place. So I've done a terrible job of publicizing the panel for Monday's LinkedIn Local Westchester. I'm going to do a post about that everywhere, like right after this. But our panelists, I am one of our panelists.
Great.
Risa Hogue from GMG Public Relations, based in Nanuet. She's going to be one of our panelists, and she's actually teaching a LinkedIn workshop today. So
nice.
so LinkedIn is her jam lately. So she's going to be talking. That's Risa Hogue. And Daniel Guiney or Greeny. I'm going to find that out before Monday. And
make sure you get the names right. Yep.
Yes. He's adding another flavor to it because he's a millennial. Risa is older than I am, and then I'm kind of in the middle of the two. And so that'll add another perspective. And he, I believe, is in real estate, but he's like very active on LinkedIn. And we are going to be moderated by Joe Ferraro, who actually has a podcast that we're going to talk about as well.
Awesome.
So I need to blow those names out there very soon, right after this. And my co-host for this event is Pasquale Palumbo, who does a lot of work in White Plains. So he was a very good partner for this because he has connections there. He connected us to our sponsor, TD Bank.
Sweet.
So yeah, it just all comes together. I couldn't have done it as effectively by myself. Having that team in place.
You're not kidding.
Yeah. And he found part of the panel and the moderator, and I found part of the panel, and we just pulled it together. Doing it by yourself is never going to go quite as well as having a team with everyone and their skills, just bringing it together and expanding it beyond your personal network.
Absolutely. And just having all those different audiences really helps, because that's different ages, different entire industries. So I'm sure that you're going to have a really nice, balanced, diverse crowd.
We can all learn from each other. It's really helpful.
Definitely. Sweet. So let's jump into another one. So having enough time to promote. And I've done some at the last minute. So
that's me.
I've broken my own rule, but that's because I'm crazy. But when you are not crazy, have enough time to promote. I will tell people generally at least a month. And that's after you lock down the venue and lock in the team, or at least the core of the team. you need to put together some kind of artwork, start posting about it in LinkedIn, use hashtag LinkedIn Local. And I think the de facto that most people are using these days, although you don't have to, is Eventbrite.
Yeah, we used Eventbrite for ours. We threw it together fairly last minute, but it is the first one in this market. So basically, this is kind of the learning one. It's going to be fantastic, but we're definitely hoping to be a little more put together for future ones because it is kind of last minute.
Right. And that's totally fine. And especially if it's like the first one, right? And for people who are watching from far away, White Plains in Westchester County is a huge populated area in semi-suburban New York City, and it's got its own crowd, and it's like all the people who have all sorts of like ridiculous things going on in business that aren't necessarily going to be coming from New York City. So every area kind of dotted around the map of the tri-state area. So people in Connecticut probably wouldn't come all the way out, or people all the way in New York and New Jersey wouldn't. So I think that, you've definitely hit a sweet spot that's dramatically underserved from what I've seen.
It's so strange that we haven't had one. It
blows my mind. Yeah,
Westchester markets
very populated for sure. So I think that when we're not kind of in crunch mode like that, and there becomes more of a process, just getting a rhythm and a cadence. I feel like it's difficult. Like you're never going to do it weekly or monthly. No. There are some people that they've already done like their 10th or 12th LinkedIn Local in different cities. There are a lot of them. I mean, I know there's one in Toronto that's crushed it and done tons of them. I know the Portland one is very active, and there's just different dots all over the world. But it's difficult to do these things with regularity. So that's why I think it's good to give people a lot of lead time. What I find is everybody gets mad at me after it goes, and they're like, why didn't I know? It's like, dude, what do you want me to do? Like, it's been out for a month. That was what we were talking about. So can't make everybody happy ever, but
yeah, I know. What can you do? It's intimate. It's intimate that way. Exactly. It's all good.
Yep. So let's see. So next is, and I think not everybody always thinks enough about this. Again, this is really getting methodical, is delivering value to the audience, right? So this isn't like an influencer party, something that personally drives me a little crazy. And again, not everybody agrees with me, but I think you don't have to have people from all over the globe that are LinkedIn influencers fly to your city, because guess what? Your city has plenty of talented people. You just look. And you don't know everybody, but like you're doing, Christine, you're going and branching out to other people that maybe you don't have a lot of familiarity with them or their industries or who they hang out with. So you just radiate out with a couple of others. And we are keeping it local.
We are keeping it local. We're not having speakers per se who are like doing a whole deck and everything to the audience. It's not a presentation. We are having a handful of local people, and a lot of people who attend will probably know at least one of us. And we're going to be talking about how best to use LinkedIn. But I've made it clear the panel part, and this I'm taking from both of the events that I've been to previously. The panel is not the point. We are not inviting them to watch a panel talk. We are inviting them to come network with each other. And the panel is just a way that we are adding value to that experience. But the point of this is not to come see us speak. The point of this is to connect with each other. And I'm sure that what Judy Fox is doing too. Judy Fox is amazing. She's a total LinkedIn dynamo. She had a LinkedIn hat and Fox ears the whole time at Social Media Marketing World. She is hosting them in Richmond, Virginia, and she's planning to do them quarterly, which I think is a great frequency, because that way you're not getting fatigue. You're not getting the same people over and over. Quarterly allows it to stay fresh, but at the same time, it's nice that if you have been to one, you can be to another, and you can bring people. You can snowball it.
Absolutely. Judy's awesome. Judy and I presented about our LinkedIn video out in Dallas this past summer.
Oh, nice.
And, see out here, Judy. So
She's awesome.
Yeah, there's so many schools of thought, right? So I'm not opposed to bringing people from out of the area. I mean, like, you could call me a hypocrite, right? Like, I live in the Midwest. What am I doing in the New York ones? So it's like, whatever, like, I'm a dual resident. I'm from there, so I get a free pass.
The boy out of Rockland, but
right, exactly. But it ain't happening. So, like, it's fine if other people want to come help boost it. But I think that there's enough brilliance everywhere, all over the planet. I mean, one of the people who started the LinkedIn Local movement is in a small area in Australia, right, with not as much going on, but she's amazing. Anna is amazing.
Yeah, she's
And
not
I
on
think
here
also,
because it's 3 a.m. over there. That's why I didn't ask you.
yeah, right,
And
exactly.
because you're fabulous. But I was like, okay, Brian will be awake.
Right, exactly. And I think, like, again, on the networking thing, for sure, I think different people come for different things. I think it satisfies a lot of people on the networking side and coming together about the panels and hearing it, because I think that delivering value, I feel like you'll have a lot of beginner, intermediate people on LinkedIn, and even some people who aren't even on LinkedIn, and just showing them simple tools like the QR code, Find Near Me, all the latest and greatest things, voice memos, LinkedIn company pages, just having like a set good amount of knowledge to deliver and how to use it properly. I think a lot of people are hungry for, and that's a differentiator beyond just the networking.
I've been at a lot of networking events, including LinkedIn local events, where I've connected with someone then and there on LinkedIn. They've been like, oh, I don't really use it though. And they haven't had a profile picture. And I've literally taken their phone out of their hands, taken a picture of them against the wall with it. And I've said, you're uploading that to your LinkedIn right now. Boom. Value.
That's New York right there. If you're true New York, you upload it for them, and you don't ask forgiveness either. Yeah. And like, guys, also, this isn't like the time to have like crappy lead gen sales pitch or whatever. It's about connecting, value of network, panels, speaking, and all of that. So for sure. And one more that I think I'll throw here, and this is probably the most not talked about and controversial thing. And this is the thing that we all should have learned in kindergarten, but unfortunately some of us didn't. And it's called working together. So if you got the report card in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, does not work well with others, you probably shouldn't be the LinkedIn organizer. Sometimes people get a little turf battle-y, and my advice is just all of you come together and work it out. Or if you're in an area like New York City, I mean, crap, there's so many. I mean, you know how massive Metro New York is? Just have them in different areas of the whole region.
A rising tide lifts all boats. I feel like that needs to be the mantra of people who are going to get into this, and people who are going to network in general. If you were there, just see what you can get out of it and to get your name out there. I mean, not saying you shouldn't look out for number one, but you have to realize it's not a zero-sum game. You are making a larger pie.
Right. And guys, like, don't expect everybody to think like you, look like you, act like you. The world doesn't work that way. Do you really want, I mean, you don't marry yourself. You don't want like a bunch of copies of yourself. You can't go on Facebook and say, if you don't believe like me, I'm going to unfriend you. It's like, well, what do you want then? Right. You have to be a good global citizen, and a lot of major arguments and wars and crazy things like that happen when people simply don't understand the other. So getting along and working together is what adults do, and it also is the same for LinkedIn Local.
Yes, and at an event like this, it really does have to be, you have to go in with an open heart. You have to go in open to connecting, open to not just seeing who can help you, but who you can help. Because that is how an event like this is really going to be of the greatest value for everybody. Another thing I want to mention about LinkedIn Local is that it can't be, even for the organizers, they say it shouldn't be about profit generation. Like we did a ticket price. They can be free. We did a ticket price because people don't show up when they don't have to buy a ticket. We did a ticket price of, I think, like $10 or something. That'll basically cover the refreshments. So none of us are put out for the refreshments. The space is sponsored by TD Bank. That's a sponsor we got, but they're just giving us space. I do have other events that I'm throwing in the future that are profit generators for me, but LinkedIn Local is not one of them. It's specifically something about that Pasquale Palumbo, my co-host, and I really wanted to bring to our community because we've seen the value in just pure connection.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Right. And if everybody knows how profit generation works, if the first thing you do after you connect with somebody on LinkedIn online is, here's what I do, 5 million paragraphs about whatever. Don't be that guy. Like, who's hiring that dude?
Buy my stuff. Buy my stuff. Right. Buy my stuff. Goodbye. Yeah.
Mute, block, disconnect. Yeah.
LinkedIn Local is not a transactional experience. It is a relationship building experience. And I highly encourage people, whether you're on LinkedIn or not, you don't have to be on LinkedIn to go to a LinkedIn Local. Look up LinkedIn local events near you, wherever you are. If you are in or near White Plains, there is one on Monday, April 1st, but it's kind of short notice, so we're going to do more. And if you're anywhere else, there are LinkedIn locals near you. There's one coming up soon in Long Island.
Everywhere.
Yeah, Judy Fox was talking about them in Richmond. Lynn was talking about them in Fort Lee. There's plenty. So just Google LinkedIn local.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you go to the local acts, or if you just do hashtag LinkedIn local in content search in LinkedIn, you'll find tons of them. It's always hard to find it, or even just searching through Eventbrite, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Different people promote it differently. I'll tell you, here in the Midwest, we just announced the Cincinnati one. We just ended up doing that annually. So that one's going to be Thursday, May 30th. We're about to announce a Dayton one in June, coming soon. Still working on that. And then who knows where, but just search the world. You will find them pretty much wherever you are. And if you can't find one, start.
I mean, don't just put one on and say, hey, I'm doing a LinkedIn local. There are guidelines. Email me or Brian. We'll hook you up with the right people who will do that onboarding call and give you the guidelines. Because it is important to respect that while it is grassroots, it is an organization now.
Absolutely. Don't ruin it. Just because you're excited, make sure it's a little polished.
Yes.
Everything will win.
Well, thank you so much to Brian Wallace from Now Sourcing for talking to us about LinkedIn Local. I hope to see whoever I can next Monday at our LinkedIn Local White Plains. But otherwise, wherever you are, just look up LinkedIn Local. I'm Christine Gritmon. I do this show social every Friday at 12 noon Eastern time right here on Facebook Live. I'm not sure who my guest is next week, but I will put that link up soon. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And thanks, Brian, for being here.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much.